There was an editorial in Haaretz which was very condemnatory of Netanyahu's policies and saying that basically he's destroying Israel. And then some prominent retired military official
Right.
or like the equivalent of the FBI in Israel made the statement that Israel won't exist in a year thanks to what Netanyahu's doing. So
Right.
it's clear that there is some real worry within Israel now
Yeah.
about what's happening and if they can maintain this much longer. And we've talked about this before that Israel is just committing suicide on the global stage through its
Yeah.
actions. Like there's really it's digging a hole the further it goes. There's no way out. It seems like that that reality is starting to seep in to the Israeli population to some extent, which could
Yeah.
cause a serious problem. You know, potentially even like a mini civil war in Israel. Can
Right.
you talk about what's going on there?
Yeah. Well, it's not it's not really an argument over Zionism. These are all Zionists, and they're all committed to the Zionist project. And I think in the end, they're all committed to expansion of Israel territory, and none of them is actually interested in recognizing a Palestinian state, or even really recognizing the rights of Palestine. They're either in favor of some kind of apartheid or in favor of ethnic cleansing or some combination of the two. But there is, okay, I think, like I've said, there is a real difference in tone, which is a serious, it's more than a difference in tone. There are people like this retired general who are very disturbed by the rise of these radical groups, these militias. I think it's Smotrich in particular. He has militias even prior to becoming the Ministry of, I think it was Security, um, and his own militias. And now, now they're irregulars. They're not part of the IDF. But you see them rampaging in the West Bank. You see them, pounding on the doors of this prison. You see this kind of behavior. They're acting outside of the law, and without any consequences. They know that they're protected, at the highest level by Smotrich, Netanyahu, and the rest of them. And this general has a fear that, that really the rule of law is coming to an end in Israel. And I think that fear is legitimate. That there always was this kind of this radical element. This was kind of again, I would say that Israel made a bargain with the devil, after the 1967 war, when it was just a few years after, it may have been even like a year after, that the first settlement was established in the West Bank. And that was the first time you say, okay, this was clearly a violation of international law. And it was the beginning of a settler movement that has always been in tension with let's say, Israeli authority, duly constituted Israeli authority. Um, and, there have always been these radicals. There's been the movement that we talked about to establish the Third Temple, and, to tear down the Al-Aqsa Mosque, to blow it up. And actually, I believe that what Ben-Gvir has been associated with that. He was actually was and is very closely tied to that movement. Um, but these have been always outside of the law. They see is to treat them with kid gloves. That's why I say there's really been a bargain with the devil. It was just that the Israelis let this grow. They've let this settler movement grow. They've let the settlements grow within the West Bank, and these militias have become more powerful. And now they're right there at the core of Israeli power, right? Now we have Smotrich and Ben-Gvir. These are the people that were way out on the fringes just a few decades ago, and they're now right at the center of power. These were the crazies, the people that were really outside the law, and now they're equal to the law. They have, the same kind of authority that the IDF has, and that's scary for the IDF and for these people. And so, yeah, it presents a real threat to the system. Now, internally it's a threat. It's a threat to the Israeli system of law. It creates a potential for some kind of civil war. The IDF has been obedient to the civilian authority, but like this recent incident we saw, this really horrifying incident of the poor Palestinian that was forcibly sodomized by the by the Israeli soldiers, and then you know, and then we saw the intervention of this mob. That really shined a light on what's happening here. And I think we may see more of it. Who knows how it's going to play out? But there clearly are some very powerful forces, conflicting forces at play within Israel, and this has obvious consequences too for Israel's international image. I mean, when you have the people like the old, let's say, secular Ashkenazi Jews used to be the face of Israel to the world. Now, again, I don't really think they were much better than Smotrich and these people. They were responsible for Nakba, and they were responsible for just chipping away and for letting the settlers do this. They made the bargain with the devil, and and it's really their own fault that they helped to create the situation that they find themselves in right now. But they did present a much, let's say, more cosmopolitan and reasonable face to the world, and especially to the U.S. They knew how to communicate with American Jews and Americans of all faiths and persuasions, right? And certainly to Western Europe and the rest of the world. But if these people start to get replaced by, the Smotriches and the Ben-Gvirs, it's Israel's stock, which has already dropped sharply, is going to drop much more. I mean, Israel's already a pariah to much of the world, and it's going to, but it's going to get even worse if they continue down the track that they're on.
And they seem to be continuing down that track. There doesn't seem to be any turnaround, right? It just
yeah.
This is the end.
Yeah, there are
This is
people
the end of
protesting.
Israel.
There are, yeah, but yeah, that seems to be the trend.
Did you see any way where Israel survives?
Well, it could. I mean, again, Israel itself, it does have a powerful military. We've seen its limits in Gaza, but it does have a powerful air force, and I think it demonstrated that the other day. When they sent the 100 aircraft against South Lebanon.
But did it really? I mean, because all right, you sent 100 aircraft, a big thing, but it didn't seem to really do too much in terms of to Hezbollah, right? They're still there. They just said this was phase one. They're still going. Like you didn't really deter Hezbollah, did you?
Well, I heard that they did an awful lot of damage to the civilian infrastructure as well.
Yeah, they're good at blowing up civilian buildings, but I mean,
right, yeah, but that is something. I mean, it makes you think. That's one reason that Iran thinks twice. They don't want to get into a war because they know that a lot of civilians are going to die. And I think Hezbollah thinks about that too. They're very much a part of their communities there. And you say, well, it's their parents and sisters and brothers and cousins that are going to be killed. When the Israelis come with their aircraft and start bombing their villages. So it is something. It is power, and they don't just hit civilian targets. They do hit military sometimes. Again, I believe Hezbollah does have, like Hamas, an extensive underground network. So I don't think they can defeat them, but they can do an awful lot of damage to people. So anyway, that's just one thing. There's limits to it. The limits are obvious, and we've discussed them. But they also have the sponsor of the U.S. And the U.S. is still with them, and it's going to be with them for at least another 4 years. It doesn't matter who's going to win the election. The U.S. is going to be on their side. But looking at beyond that, it just looks very bad. It's just already, you still have, again, a lot of Western European governments, but I think those are going to start to fall away just because there's, again, the people are so horrified by what's happening there that, again, especially if somebody like a Ben-Gvir takes power, it's going to be very difficult to maintain the fiction, that Israel is anything other than a genocidal power. And so it'll just add to its isolation. Yeah, I can see them hanging on for a while, months, maybe years. But after a certain point, I don't think they can. I just seems like they've gone, unless there's some sort of miraculous U-turn in Israeli society, and I see no signs of that. They are on a path to destruction, self-destruction, and the destruction of some neighboring countries too, unfortunately.
Okay, well, we'll end it on that somber note. Okay. All right. Well, Dad, have a good flight back to America. And for our next podcast, I'm not sure if I will be heading up to Kentucky for a wedding. So we'll see if we'll be able to do one. We'll try to squeeze one in. But if not, apologies to anybody listening. And if
Okay.
anybody's made it this far, please like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. Okay. All right. Thanks. Thanks a lot, Dad. Bye bye.
Bye.